Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet Voice You Know With the News You Trust studio, sponsored by Grain Equipment Company, where innovation meets execution. I'm Dale Menyo. Good Monday morning, everyone. Agricultural Secretary Tom Vilsack is defending USDA's oversight of its loan guarantees and grants to a small and mid-sized processor after Republican lawmakers this past week demanded accountability for $45.6 million provided to an Iowa broiler processor that shut down and forced the state of Iowa to call 1.3 million healthy chickens on 13 farms. As DTN had reported, Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship last month was faced to start feeding the 1.3 million broiler chickens and eventually depopulated the flocks after Pure Prairie Poultry shut down its operations at a northern Iowa processing facility at the end of September. Pure Prairie Poultry shutdown affected growers in Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, though the largest number of chicken farms were in Iowa. Growers were left scrambling to try to feed and care for roughly 2 million total chickens. Farmers in some cases reported to be offering free chickens to people who would come and take them. The Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship ended up calling chickens after finding a potential processor willing to take the birds, only to have then that plan quashed by creditors in court. Republican members of Congress from the three states, along with the GOP leaders on the U.S. House and Senate Ag Committee, wrote a letter to Vilsack this past week demanding answers about USDA's oversight of its loan guarantee and grant programs. Pure Prairie Poultry was among the first companies to receive a loan guarantee of $38.7 million and a grant of $6.9 million in 2022 when the Biden administration made an aggressive push to expand processing capacity nationally. In a press conference Thursday, Vilsack defended USDA's overall loan portfolio following Pure Prairie Poultry's collapse, and all told, more than 400 projects were funded in the same way or another, the secretary noted, through the multiple loan guarantee and grant programs that led to a total of $1.4 billion invested, not just by USDA, but by investors and lenders. The collapse of the broiler processor was an unusual circumstance, the secretary said. Today's weather brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
Going to need to keep the umbrella handy here over the next couple of days. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at that Ohio forecast update. We've got some moisture trying to work through. The best moisture, though, is setting up a little bit farther to our west. Good rounds of rain and thunderstorm activity in Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, and somewhat in Indiana. Here, we're just kind of left with the overshoot of the moisture. So while we're putting some scattered showers in the forecast here for today, it's definitely not going to be 100% coverage. I think tomorrow we see a slightly better coverage than today, but it may be overnight Tuesday night into Wednesday before we end up with 100% coverage across Ohio. That cool front finally trying to exit through on Wednesday is going to give us our best chance at moisture. All in, all done. Combine the next 3 days, today, tomorrow, and Wednesday together, and you're probably going to end up with a quarter to, at most, 1 inch of moisture. Probably a quarter to 3/4 is a better range. Coverage at 100%, but once again, it's going to take all the way through the end of Wednesday before we get that 100% coverage. We get back to dry weather with sunshine for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and most of Sunday as high pressure dominates. Sunday afternoon, clouds increase. We may have to deal with some hit and miss moisture overnight Sunday night through Monday midday. Quarter to 3/4 of an inch max, probably more like half an inch or less. Coverage 60%. We take Tuesday off, put dry weather in there, and then Wednesday the 13th, we probably see some moisture trying to come back over the state. That's a look at your forecast update. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Well, after 2 weeks of delay to start of the wet season in soybean planting, producers in the state of Mato Grosso, Brazil's largest production state of both corn and soybeans, they've pushed hard and made up ground due to good weather. Daily rains scattered across the region have been heavier than normal for October and softened soils enough to make for better planting conditions, as well as give enough moisture for germination. Therefore, producers really got out in earnest. According to the Mato Grosso Institute of Agriculture Economics, what was a terrible start to planting season has come back to normal pace. The total completed planting has progressed to 79.56% in a report released November 1, compared to the 5-year average of 79.11. 2 weeks ago, planting progress was only at 25% compared to the 5-year average of 45%. That means producers in the state there planted roughly 55% of their intended acreage in just 2 weeks, and this is a remarkable feat that puts soybean planting within the normal window. It also releases the threat of a significant delay to not only the soybean crop, but what would develop normally despite the delays, but also the second season Safrinha corn crop, which will be planted in late January and February. Under normal conditions, timely planting of the Safrinha corn crop exposes less of it to the dry season that starts in late April or early May. Producers there then try to work through the pollination while rain is actively falling, then rely on buildup soil moisture for kernel fill and to finish the crop. Due to this, roughly 80% of the crop must be planted by November 1. Producers just accomplished that feat. The weather continues to be favorable with widespread showers and thunderstorms in the region for the next couple of weeks. Models vary on intensity, but generally agree roughly 3 to 5 inches of rain through November 11th throughout central Brazil. Back with more after this.
Since 1926, Nationwide has been rooted in agriculture. Founded as the Farm Bureau Mutual Automobile Insurance Company with a mission to protect farmers and their communities, we honor our legacy by offering solutions that evolve with the complex needs of today's farms. As the leading insurer of America's farms and trusted by 8 farm bureaus for 100 years and counting, Nationwide is on your side. Number 1 insurer based on 2023 direct written premium per AM Best. Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Hi everyone, this is Dale Minio from the Ohio AgNet. For a quarter of a century, I powered my truck with biodiesel, traveling the state promoting agriculture. Biodiesel is a reliable, high-performance fuel that works in any diesel engine without modification. The best part is that with every mile driven, I'm fueling the economy, doing good for the environment, and supporting soybean farmers. Learn how using biodiesel can add value to every bushel of soybeans grown at soyohio.org.
Joining me is Jenna Reese. And Jenna, it's time for our update on the forest industry. Jenna is the executive director of the Ohio Forestry Association. You can always find out more on their website. We'll get to that in a little bit. Jenna, I'm a little excited necessarily about bourbon, but how is the forestry industry associated with the impending bourbon crisis?
Many people in general don't realize that the Kentucky bourbon industry relies heavily on Ohio's native supply of white oak in our forests. And there's so much pressure on white oak. It's such a popular species in regard to furniture, decor, flooring, cabinetry, you name it. It's also the only species that legally can be used to produce bourbon barrel, and therefore the demand is just so strong for this species. And estimates are we're going to run out of enough new growth in white oak in the next 20 to 30 years. Devastate the bourbon industry.
This might be a weird question. Can we reuse the barrels?
So you can for other industries and products. Bourbon barrels often get reused for beer, wine, maple syrup, many other things. You see that bourbon barrel aged moniker on different products. Its time in the bourbon industry is done after one use. You have to have one never used, properly charred white oak barrel to be able to use it for bourbon.
Well, that explains why we need such a supply, because every year it's a new use for that. I'm glad there have other uses, but the bottom line is there a time period that we need to try to figure out how we're going to continue to contribute with new growth or even some harvest of some of the stands that are there?
It's actually really exciting that the time is now. We can solve this crisis if we just have landowners start managing for white oak specifically. If you don't have white oak on your property, you are not going to be able to generate a stand of healthy white oak. If your property already has it, then you are likely able to act now, implement a forest management plan. If you don't have one, reach out to a certified forester to get that going, and you can start working today to solve this crisis.
And we we can work on that stand by managing for straight growth, getting some of those lower limbs trimmed at an appropriate time. We want this tree to go as straight up as possible, not out in the field where it's going to branch out tremendously. So there are some things you can do to help your stand not only have value, but continue to create value in the upcoming years.
I would say the 4 main tools that you're going to have recommended to you are controlling invasive species. White oak get outcompeted by invasives all the time. Fencing for deer, while wildlife is wonderful and we certainly want to encourage wildlife management. Part of that is fencing for deer when white oaks are younger and trying to reach maturity. It also involves controlled burns. That's something you're going to want to do with supervision and guidance of a certified forester, and you're going to be in there harvesting timber. You're going to have to do different harvests to be able to open up the canopy and allow your white oak to thrive.
Jenna, is there more on this topic on your website?
You can access resources on our website, ohioforest.org.
Jenna Reese, my guest, as we talk about bourbon and how it affects our white oak management. Thanks for the update, Jenna Reese, Executive Director of the Ohio Forestry Association. Time now for the Louis Dreyfus Grain Analysis, brought to you by the Ohio Soybean Council and your soybean checkoff. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets finished mixed on Friday. Another week is ahead of us here. What is the round of talking points this time? Well, the election, the U.S. election, is probably the biggest one. That was being cited on Friday as the market kind of faded from the midday on through the close. Equity markets were sharply higher on Friday, despite the Labor Department placing U.S. job growth in October at just 12,000 new jobs, well below the trade's guess of 100,000. 2 hurricanes were cited. That was Milton and Helene. The Dow was up over 500 points for a time last Friday. Crude oil jumped. That was probably the biggest thing that helped support the grains overall. The markets came off of their highs last Friday as the enthusiasm in all markets waned ahead of the U.S. election that is here this week. Back to the demand side of the equation. Exporters sold 330,000 metric tons of soybeans to China, unknown, and a sizable 716,000 metric tons of old crop corn to Mexico. Here's the thing. Mexico, on a known basis through October 25th, had secured 10.6 million metric tons of U.S. origin corn for 24-25 delivery. Last year, it was only 9.5 million metric tons. Here's what we know about Mexico. After the turn of the year, when you get the new legislature going down there, the legislative session, the GMO corn ban that's been talked about for a while is really going to ramp up. I feel that Mexico is buying ahead of its needs right now because of the expectation that's going to be a little bit of a blip in the radar screen after the new year starts. We'll see if that pace continues. Also, as we mentioned off the top, 30,000 metric tons of soy oil to India. That highlights the U.S. soy oil's newly found competitive position in the global veg oil market. Cash milling wheat in India remained quoted at $9.65 a bushel, so imports are unlikely in the medium term due to politics. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Back with markets after this.
Whether you're in the fields or on the farm, creating a safer work environment has never been easier. BWC's safety consulting services are included with your policy premiums and offer training and education for everyone in your farming operation. It's always the right time to make safety a priority. Visit bwc.ohio.gov or call 1-800-644-6292. The Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation, here to help you work safely.
Today's market's brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. In the overnight, December corn up 3 at 417.5. March up 2 1/4 at 431.5. If you carry it out to May, 439.5, up 2 1/4. Beans better. November up 10 1/4 to 992 3/4. January up 11 1/4, trading $10.05. Carry it to March, you're at 10.19 3/4, up 11.5. In the wheat, December up 5 3/4 at 573 3/4. July new crop, $6.10.5, up 4 3/4. In livestock, December cattle down 37 cents at 185.92. February up 12 at 186.90. December lean hogs, $84.07, up 27. February closed on Friday up 82 cents at $86.02. Feeder cattle for January, $243.20, up $1.87. The March feeder cattle up $2.07 at $241.15. Powered by Soy Biodiesel, heading down to near Delaware, just south of Delaware, to the Ohio Corn and Wheat office. We'll be talking all things Ohio corn and wheat today for midday. Midday tomorrow, I'll head to Springfield to the Farm Credit Office, and we'll be talking about the value of putting together a plan on year-end planning. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, everyone. I'm Dale Minyo. This is the Ohio AgNet.